I actually like talking about our work. I like talking to people without salesmanship. At worst, as architects, we have to constantly sell our ideas. The pressure of actually having to persuade people about the worth of our ideas is something that's mind-numbingly constant.
What is John Wardle?
Our projects tell stories. They are about the client, the history of the site, specific issues that are formulate an agenda that we do in the collective spirit of this office, and they tell the story about that architectural engagement with the opportunity of that project. A lot of the best projects around Melbourne at the moment are all about one thing. I think it's repair of the city. Building big buildings within holes that have been, where the city has been degraded, perhaps in a previous economic cycle or over time. Mm-hmm. This project that we're involved with on Melbourne's Docklands is about repairing something that had been let go and hadn't been even considered as a sort of a bona fide edge to the city, and yet it's potentially our most glorious edge. It's the only water views that you get in the city of Melbourne. The image that you'll see of that building isn't of anything that's going to look like sailing ships or container ships or whatever, but there's a suggestion there of the clutter of objects that you might have found in a containerised wharf. And once, like most good stories, the telling of it actually invigorates the understanding of the building. It's not obvious. It's never. I don't like architecture. I think it's a very blunt instrument to tell stories with.
Why did you become an architect?
Yeah, I'm sure we all can trace these things back to some formative experience. Travelling at a young age, we camped in the Buatta alone in 1968. We travelled the breadth of the continent, constantly travelling.
How old were you then?
11. It's a very powerful experience for a young mind. Nothing is the same. The means of education, the relationship to the city, the age of things. In Melbourne, with such a young culture, to actually be in a building that's 600 years old, not 80, and considering that's old. In going through this process of doing my masters, I've learned a lot about myself. I'm a poor creator of correct process or conventional process. Some designers can go, boom, come up with the idea and resolve it immediately. The best ideas that I create as an architect require a slow resolution over time. One of my father's great interests was sort of history and the elements of history, and in Geelong, as they were busily ruining it and demolishing everything in the 60s, one of the most interesting libraries of history was actually a demolition yard, and a good friend of my father was Geelong's main demolition contractor, who was steadfastly pulling down all the buildings, but had these enormous yards with great big sheds full of the bits of architecture. Finial staircases, sash windows, commemorative stones, bits of footing, beautiful corbels, all of the bits, the stuff that makes up architecture, particularly the precious bits, the hard bits, the bits that are highly wrought and handmade, were in this great cavernous factory spaces, and I would go and spend Saturday mornings and just walk through up and down stairs to nowhere. I love the exactness of working through the elements of our process. I often say good ideas are without scale. When we draw to no particular scale. We know that we then have to transfer that to the scale of a drawing. Proportion and interrelationship would be the two things that define that moment of setting an idea and trying. I don't work on a computer, but I actually output from the computer and work over the computer drawings, and I love, in fact, they become it's a great opportunity for actually interaction between the two forms, output from a computer and sketching over it. I think the stages that an architect goes through creatively don't necessarily have a defined edge from the conceptual phase to the design development phase to so on, and onward into the documentation stages. Again, I managed to work in parallel to the whole stream of production of our architecture, and it still is working and overworking. It's all about potential ideas, and when does it stop? The only time they actually stop is when it is absolutely complete. I often talk to my staff about how forgiving the building process is because it's so slow. And as long as you're on a site and looking creatively rather than looking for defects and just basic things, look creative, you realise there's still enormous potential in the act of construction to further revise and develop some of the very important ideas in a building. Many of our best houses are out of fairly rudimentary materials, but they're expensive houses because of the way we've shifted around and played with the structure and sort of subverted the natural systems of the fabric. And that's where we draw out through conversation. Our clients will say, well, look, really, I'd like a house that responds to the fact that I don't like wearing clothes in my house. I want to go nude, but I don't want to see the neighbours see me. I don't want the kids to actually see me. I don't want to just be in my bedroom nude. I want to be in...
You're serious?
Yeah. And so, well, okay, well, actually, that's right. We can actually then concoct a formula for this house that allows that pattern of activity. Or, gee, I tell you what, it's crazy, I know, I'm 45, but I want to play in a rock band. But I'm embarrassed about it. Okay, we've got to look at the acoustics of this issue. Or whatever.
Have you had these sorts of dilemmas?
Yeah, well, I'll draw them out. And often I'll have it early in the process, I'll have a pair of clients that go, oh my God, we've chosen the wrong architect.